Hey, show here. I'm glad you've decided to join me as we dive into the Bible together, kind of alone, but kind of together. Today, we're working our way through Matthew 4. And just as a reminder, the theme that we're working through Matthew with is are we elevating man over God or God over man? So we're kind of using that filter. I do want to apologize a little bit in advance. I am outside. It's a beautiful day, but it's starting to get a little bit blustery, but I just really feel compelled to do it here. I've already had a barking dog. My neighbor was out walking, making my dog bark. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. This is my second go at this. So I'm going to talk loud just that way in case we do get a blast of wind. You can still hear me, and hopefully it won't be too distracting. So anyway, with that little disclaimer for today's lesson, we're going to go ahead and jump right on in to Matthew 4, reading it through the filter or through the lens of are we elevating man over God or God over man? Um, this one was kind of hard for me to do because when I first started out, my Christian walk, I kind of became a hardliner. I've always been a little bit more oriented to like the mind part. And then I discovered that I totally was missing the God part of things. Probably in my early Christian walk, when I was like a junior Christian or whatever, um, I looked more like a Pharisee probably than someone loving, using Jesus's righteousness. I probably had my own self-righteous. So for Matthew 4, there's so much great stuff in Matthew 4, but it's towards the end of the book in not chapters, but verses 23 through 25 were the ones that really struck me. Now, I use the term Pharisee. If you're not familiar with the Pharisees, that's okay because we're going to hit them in a couple. They're going to show up in a couple more chapters, and you'll get some insights into them. But I would probably put myself more in the Pharisee category than someone who loved like Jesus did in my early Christian walk. And I don't think that's too unusual as people, as they start out. Sometimes we have to grow to love and understand that. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't like a Medusa kind of Christian. Um, I was pretty okay on the outside, and people did learn. I started teaching early into my, being a Christian. Started teaching, and people learned a lot of good stuff from me, but I know that I was missing that heart connection. I looked pretty good on the outside, but on the inside, there was a lot of garbage that needed to be taken out. And fortunately, over the years and over the Christian growth and everything, that's what happened. And I think that God had these chapters or these verses, 23 through 25, I think He had them jump out at me for two reasons. The first one being that that's what's the utmost importance for Him, and that's what's truly important is really, loving each other. And secondly, I think it's also just kind of a reminder to show how far I've come over the years of being a Christian. So let me go ahead and we'll just jump into what the gist of chapters 23 through 25 is. Um, in my Bible, the subtitle is, and sorry, I'm glancing at notes because I want to make sure I get all of this stuff in here. In my Bible, they subtitled this particular section, Teaching, Preaching, and Healing. Jesus taught in the synagogues, He preached the good news, and He healed all of the diseases. Not just some of them, but all of the diseases. Nowhere in this section or in this stretch does it say that Jesus hit people over the head with the Bible. He didn't thump the Bible at them. Nowhere does it say that He used hate to get people to follow Him. And nowhere does it say that He preyed on the emotions of the hurting to get His message across. He helped, He healed, and He informed. But most of all, even though He did have a standard and He didn't stray from that, most of all, He loved. And that's what jumped out at me because I used to not really, that wasn't a part of my makeup. So I've grown from one that was used to be more of a Bible thumper into someone who uses the Bible to help me grow closer to God so that I can grow more Christ-like. I'm sorry, here comes a little bit of the wind, so I hope it's not too distracting. And my pages, I have to show you, they have a dragonfly. See, and he's even got like a leaf hanging from him. He's helping me hold my Bible open in case I need to refer to my Bible. So anyway, but I've grown more. The Bible, getting into the Bible and learning all that good stuff has really taught me about God, but it's also, more importantly, taught me how to live and act and reflect more like Jesus. And that's what Jesus did here. He he's perfect. I'm not perfect, but I learned to act more like him. And what's really amazing is as I've learned to love people more, I've learned to love people even outside of his fold. I mean, I've always liked people and everything like that, but sometimes it was conditional. Sometimes it had to do like if they did this, then I would love on them. If they did this, but I found that the more I grow to reflect Jesus and what he did, like preaching and healing and informing, instead of doing it kind of the ugly way, I've learned that I really can embrace people outside the fold as well. So, a good example of that is that I volunteer at a crisis pregnancy center. And we get all kinds of girls, and most of them are young, some of them are teenagers, early, young adults. And a lot of them are at this pregnancy center because they're facing an unexpected or an unplanned pregnancy. Some of them are Christian, some of them are believers, but both of them had stepped outside of what God's perfect plan for us is, and just got into a little bit of trouble. And I hate to use trouble because every baby is a blessing from God no matter how it was conceived. That's a whole nother subject, so I don't want to get too hung up on that. But anyway, these girls come in, and maybe the old Shona would have looked down my nose at them. I would have still been nice, but it might not have been as genuine. But now I find that I genuinely love these girls. I love mentoring these girls. I love giving these girls guidance. I love sharing Jesus's love. And I don't always tell them that it's Jesus's love. I just love on them because I love to do that. Now, if they ask what drives me or if it opens up the conversation, I am so right there ready to tell them about Jesus and hopefully bring them into the fold if they're not a believer, or maybe take them more, deeper into the faith with Jesus if they already have a bit of a Christian foundation. So, I just, things blowing away. I just really love that. Jesus, he shared himself by caring for others. And we share Jesus when we care for others. And really, isn't that what it's all about? And I'm so glad I've gotten so much better at this. Still not perfect, but I'm not quite the spiritual snob that I used to be when I first started my walk, started my Christian walk. I've still got a long ways to go, but at least I'm getting more genuine. I'm not such a hardliner. Yes, Jesus has a standard, but I'm getting better at loving on those and understanding and embracing those that maybe step outside that standard and maybe just need those are the people that really need a lot of love. And I think that all that means is that I've learned to elevate God over myself, over me being a spiritual snob, over me knowing so much and me working so hard, and I'm not any better than anyone else. And I think that that's what's so important. And when we elevate God, it's like this, if I can do this right. Okay. It's like if we elevate ourselves, we almost like push everybody else because we're acting on our own righteousness and our own ego-ness. Okay, but when we elevate Jesus, we elevate God. It's like, we elevate others like this dragonfly. We lift them up, and it's like we take a back seat. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's kind of a corny example, but I never know what's going to come out when I actually start recording. So anyway, we just need to learn to elevate God. And my time's up. I try to stay under 10 minutes. I'm almost there. But I do want to leave you with this, which is really encouraging because none of us are perfect. And we just need to set the ego aside. But it says the good news of the gospel is that God draws straight lines with crooked sticks. When we realize that we're all crooked sticks, that makes us really have to rely on God more. So let me read that one more time. The good news of the gospel is that God draws straight lines with crooked sticks. We're all crooked sticks, but we really need to strive to draw those straight lines. So thank you, C.S. Lewis, for that quote, and thank you for my friend this morning on Facebook, my friend from Florida, who shared that quote. Thanks. I gotta go. Hopefully, we'll see you next time.